Hey friend, Chris here from MyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Welcome to day 20 in our Newbie to Ninja series here on the channel and website, where I'll help you go from being a beginner in Logic Pro to become an expert, fully comfortable and capable to get right down to making awesome music in this amazing application. Today, let's talk Drummer in Logic Pro. Plainly put, Drummer is awesome, and I honestly can't imagine using another DAW or recording application for songwriting and producing if it doesn't come with Drummer in it. Drummer is your virtual drum player in the box that literally at a moment's notice you can load an entire song worth of drums for your songs, for your productions, and we're not talking about a 4-bar loop that you loop over and over for 3.5 minutes. No, Drummer regions will adapt to different sections of your songs based on the settings that you set. Drummer regions can also follow the other performances of the other tracks in your projects, and even after this level of customization, you can convert your drummer regions to MIDI regions so you can edit those performances on a note-by-note basis. Pun intended, Drummer is banging, so today I want to show you how to get set up loading a drummer track, loading drummer regions, getting to know the drummer editor to specify different aspects of the performance, plus some other tips along the way. Let's dig into it. All right, so the project in front of us is just a quick rock riff that I wrote. We'll take a listen to a snippet of this performance, and then we'll load Drummer into our project. All right, so there's my little rock riff. From here, let's load an instance of Drummer by once again either going to the plus symbol at the top of the tracks area to load the new tracks dialog, or we could also go up to track right at the top menu bar and go down to new tracks and then click. But it is worth pointing out that if you look a little further down, you can instantly load a drummer track specifically with a single click by clicking on new drummer track. I'm going to load the new tracks dialog just so we can see the different options that are available to you. At the top, of course, we can choose our track type for our project. And of our 5 options, we'll select Drummer. And under the details section, right at the bottom, we have a drop-down menu for what kind of genre or drumming style we want for our song. In this drop-down, we have 7 that we could choose from rock to alternative, songwriter to R&B, electronic, hip-hop, and percussion. Don't feel limited, though, by these 7 different genres, because once we load our drummer track, you'll see there are many other drummers with different drumming styles that you can choose from within each of these categories. So I'm going to select the rock genre, and then we'll go down to create. So a lot of stuff has just happened in our project. First, we loaded a drummer track, which comes preloaded with a single drummer region. So we instantly have a drum performance that will play back in our project that we can play along to, record to right from the get-go. We can also see that the drummer editor has been loaded at the bottom of the screen. This allows us to make adjustments to the performance on a region per region basis. And to the left, we have the library that shows us what drummer we're working with. So we have Kyle, who is a pop rock drummer. Under the rock genre, but we can see the other genres as well just by clicking. So we have quite a few drummers that we can choose from. And right at the bottom here, we can see under sounds, under drum kit, we have the SoCal kit loaded for Kyle. That's his default kit. All right, so out of the gate, let's take a listen to what Kyle brings to the table for this rock riff. All right, so I'm a big fan of Kyle, so I'm very happy out of the gate with what he brings to the table, but I'll definitely want to adapt the performance so it's a better fit for my riff. But out of the gate, it already sounds great. Because there's so much going on screen, I'm going to close the library. Of course, we could adjust the boundaries of any of these areas of Logic Pro just by clicking and dragging. But for now, let's just close the library and we'll return to it a little later. As just noted, we have a single drummer region in our project, but we can easily load more drummer regions into this project by hovering our mouse over the right boundary of the first region. We'll get this plus icon on which you can click. And there we have it. We have another drummer region and we can just keep going. Additionally, you can adjust the boundaries of your drummer performances by hovering your mouse over the left and right boundaries of the region. So there we have it. In this case, if I hover my mouse in the bottom left-hand corner, I can adjust the length of just this one drummer region. As such, we can see that the performance has been adapted based on this adjustment in length to the performance. We can also add another region in between. We can adjust the length of both regions that are directly side by side by hovering our mouse about the midway point between the two regions. Click and drag. Or the right-hand side as well. So if I just select this one region, there we have it. And as I mentioned, every drummer region has its own specific performance. If we click on each region and start to make adjustments using, in this case, the XY pad, I could set this region to a simple and soft performance. We could set the second region to a more loud and complicated beat. The third region, we could get rid of the snare and hi-hat, so on and so forth. If we listen to this transition from the first region to the second, I mean, that is bananas. Each individual region is adapting based on these settings, and then even the transitions of a fill into the next section are leading in a seamless way. But for now, let's just hone in on one drummer region and really get to know this whole system. So I'm going to actually mute these two tracks. And let's zoom in on our drummer region so we can really see what's going on. Starting on the left-hand side of the editor, Logic Pro thankfully provides several beat presets that you can load on a per region basis for a quick starting point for your songs. To start with, we could load the Crash the Party beat preset. If we listen to this preset, it should be a bit more of a loud and complex drum beat. All right, so Kyle is playing the toms with snare and kick in a more complex pattern. If we then click on the Echo Park preset, take a listen. And if we take a look at the Paper Hearts, as you can see and hear, everything about this performance is adapting on the fly. Now, beat presets are pretty cool, but maybe you want to further fine-tune the performance. Maybe you have a specific vision for the sound of the drums for your song. Moving over to the XY pad, let's first decide if we want to work with a soft or loud performance, as well as choose between simple and complex, or some combination in between. If we start with loud between simple and complex, or soft, simple, or complex. I just can't get over how awesome Drummer is. This is so easy and so immediate. For my riff, if we take a listen to the guitar tracks in context, I definitely am thinking something a bit louder and simpler. All right, from here, I feel like we're in the dynamic ballpark for my riff. And as much as I love that hi-hat pattern, I don't feel like it's appropriate for this particular riff. So let's now move over to the drum instrument section of the editor, with which we can choose which drums should be playing in this region and section, as well as adjust the pattern for each of the drum elements. First, by clicking on a drum element so that it's highlighted, that drum element is now the one that is playing in our region. While the drums that are gray will not be played in our region of performance. With acoustic drums, we can choose between either the hi-hats or the cymbals or the toms. We can also choose to include the snare or the kick or neither. Plus, we can include different percussion elements for acoustic drums, such as a tambourine, a shaker, as well as claps. And if we take a listen to this drummer performance, I'll make adjustments. All right, and within each drum element, we can choose between different patterns for the percussion, for the toms or cymbals, for the kick and snare. For my riff, I'm going to choose hi-hat, kick, and snare, and from there we'll select between the different patterns for the hi-hat and the kick and snare. Let's give it one more try. And at the rightmost edge of the kick and snare slider, we have the options to either choose a half-time or double-time tempo for our drummer region. This can be super handy for a section of your song where maybe the song is going to get a little slower or a little faster. Let's take a listen. Between the XY pad and the different drum elements, you have a lot of opportunity to customize the performance of your drummer regions. What's worth pointing out, right above the kick and snare slider, we have this option to have our drummer region follow the performance of another track in our project. So if we take a look, drummer has gone ahead and analyzed the performance of this guitar track called Off Axis. We can click on this drop-down menu and select between other tracks in the project. We can see that the performance has been updated. Let's take a listen. Right there, the kick and snare pattern is now following the guitars a lot better than it was previously. And by playing with the XY pad, we can further finesse how the drums are following along with my guitars. On the right side of the editor, we have two controls for both fills and swing. And by increasing the control, we add more fills or increase the swing of the performance. Right, so if we start at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and mute these guitars again just because it can get a little old hearing them again and again and again. Let's take a quick listen to what these drums sound like as I add fills to the performance. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. If we adjust this. So a slightly different fill. And what's interesting about the drummer editor is if you adjust the fill to a specific point again and again and again, you can get slightly different variations each time. So if we look at this fill right here, make an adjustment, go right back, do it a third time. That's pretty awesome. And if you land on some fills for a region that you're really happy with, you can lock this fill control so you don't accidentally bump the control and lose that fill that you were happy with. We can also introduce more and more swing to the performance, either on an 8th note or 16th note basis. If we take a listen. It's a little crazy, but again, you can also lock the swing control if you land on a swing that you're really happy with and you don't want to accidentally bump that knob later on. And right at the bottom, we have this section for details. And under the details control, it all depends on what kind of drummer you're working with. With the feel knob, we can have the drummer either push or pull against the tempo of our project. If we take a listen and a look. Okay, again, it's getting a little crazy. I'm going to dial back the fills. With the ghost notes knob, we can adjust the level of ghost notes or those syncopated snare and kick hits that are kind of in between the main beat. We can go either less or more. We're not seeing a lot of action right now, but if we dial up the fills, dial this back, a little more action right around here. But if we start to explore some of the other drummers that have a little more nuance to their performances, the ghost notes control can really prove to be useful. And then lastly, for acoustic drummers, we have this option to either have the drummer automatically set how open or closed the hi-hat is, or we can choose this for our drummer. We take a listen. Moving forward, let's now open the library once again. We're going to start to explore some of the other drummer options. I'll use key command Y. And from here, we could either choose to change our drummer and our drum kit entirely. So for example, we could choose maybe Logan, the retro rock drummer. Logic's going to let us know because we're changing the drummer. This will replace any changes we've made to the region settings of our drummer performance. But we can choose to keep these settings by going to this drop-down menu right here next to the beat presets. We'll explore that momentarily. Let's just change our drummer for now. Okay, we can see a lot of controls have been updated. If we take a look and a listen, I mean, that sounds pretty awesome too. I'm going to turn off the follow function for the kick and snare just so we can see some of the other options of the other drummers. Now from here, perhaps I really dig what Logan is playing. We just want to try out other drum kits with this drummer. Well, in the sound section of the library, we can choose a new drum kit from the different options available. So if we select maybe the Liverpool kit, take a listen. All right, that's a little heavy for me, so let's take a listen to the East Bay kit. All right, now maybe I'm feeling that drum kit especially. I just want to try out a different drummer. Well, if we go to the lock symbol right in the sound section here of the library, we can click this to keep the drum kit and now select a different drummer. So maybe we select an R&B drummer, such as Curtis. Again, Logic is letting us know that some of the settings in the editor here will be adapted based on this drummer that we've selected. Take a listen. Once again, I've changed the drum kit. And from here, maybe I want to keep these settings, but I want to change the drummer once again. And I don't want that pop-up to occur. So if we go to this drop-down menu next to the beat presets and click, we can choose to keep the settings when changing drummer, as well as keep the drum kit, which we enabled by clicking on this lock icon in the library. All right, so let's give it a try. Let's go to maybe Leah here in the electronic category. All right, so same kit, same approximate performance. Leah would play a drum machine instead of an acoustic drum kit, meaning there's a slightly different setup for which drum elements you can choose and the patterns that you can choose. And if we take a listen, okay, those drums sound a little too crazy, and that's because of the tempo of the project. So let's move on to a second project where we can load a different style of drummer. In this case, we'll load a hip-hop drummer. All right, we can see that we've loaded Dez, who plays a trap style of drum production using Drum Machine Designer. Most of the editor looks mostly about the same. We have this XY pad to choose between soft and loud, simple and complex. But instead of choosing different drum elements from the anatomy of an acoustic drum kit, we instead can choose either kick or snare or claps, hi-hats and cymbals, as well as other percussion elements. So if we take a listen right now to what this sounds like with my 808. As you can see, it's just as easy as working with the acoustic drummers. We can also have Dez follow along with the performance of my 808s. If we choose the 808 track stack, take a listen. It's pretty awesome. If we go into the details section, underneath the fills and swing, there's a different view of the details control when working with drummers that use drum machines for performance, where we can actually set a complexity range for each drum element that's being performed. And we can enable or disable the other drum elements just by clicking. And from here, we can choose, do we want our hats to be super simple or super complex, or a range between simple and complex? And this can be set for every drum element. right? So now I've simplified for the most part, allowing for a window of variation for the kick and snare in terms of complexity, while the hats will be much more complex. We also have a control for auto halftime, a humanized control, which will determine how quantized these performances are. With the humanized knob set all the way to the bottom, this performance is quantized to the tempo and grid of our project. While if I increase the humanization, the performance becomes less and less quantized. We can lock this control so we can't make any further adjustments. And the phrase variation determines how much variation there is across the drummer region. And from here, if you've landed on a performance that you're incredibly happy with, like 90% happy with, but there's just small details that you wish you could change on a per note basis, you absolutely can. Just by selecting your drummer regions, whether it be just a single region or every region in your song, once selected, you can either right click or hold Control and click. We get this pop-up menu. Right down here under Convert, we have the option to convert our drummer regions to MIDI regions just by clicking. And check it out. Now we can see every single note of the performance, and we can make adjustments to those individual notes. If I add these snares, maybe here and here. But don't feel stuck if you want to convert back to drummer regions. You just select all your regions that you want to convert back. Right click or hold Control and click, go down to Convert, and you can convert back to a drummer region. And lastly, the question that I get all the time is sometimes you may see in videos drummer performances, but instead of a single track with a single instrument and plugins, you may see a drummer track stack with every single drum element laid out on its own track lane. Specifically with acoustic drum players, and to achieve that multi-track layout for those drum performers, you're going to look under the producer kits right down here. So we can see that Finn uses the Coffee Shop kit. If we click on the Coffee Shop Plus patch under the producer kits, a track stack has been loaded with every single drum element laid out underneath. With the producer kits, you can process and balance the individual elements individually and separately from the other kit elements. So if we go to R&B and select Benny, we can see that Benny uses the Motown Revisited kit. If we go to the bottom, we see producer kits, and we can look for Motown Revisited Plus. Look at that. Every drum element for that kit laid out across the tracks area and the mixer. As you can see, there is so much to drummer that you can dive into, whether it be just for a quick set of drum tracks to play along to as you record, or for meticulously constructed and mixed drum tracks that you plan on using for the final result of your songs and productions. Drummer has your back. Thanks so much, and I'll see you for more tomorrow in our Newbie to Ninja series. Take care.